Netanyahu has no choice but to carry on. He arrived in New York earlier this week, where he's expected to address the opening fall session of the UN General Assembly. And he's going to confront the world for doing nothing to stop Iran's regime from racing towards fully operational nuclear warheads. And he's going to blast the international community, I think, for doing almost nothing to punish the Iranian regime for beating, crushing, and killing their own people, especially women. Good evening and welcome to the Rosenberg Report, coming to you not only from Israel, but from Jerusalem, our beautiful and eternal capital. Happy New Year! Jews here in Israel and around the world are celebrating Rosh Hashanah and the high holidays as we approach Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the most sacred day on the Jewish calendar. Lots to cover tonight. For the last several weeks, as you know, we've been looking at the dynamics inside the Republican campaign for the American presidency. Tonight, I want to look at the Democrats, at the latest polling showing how rapidly Americans are turning against President Biden and how even the vast majority of Democrats don't want Biden to run. I also want to look at the very real possibility that Michelle Obama will jump into the race this fall, maybe an October surprise, and try to completely transform the dynamic of the campaign, and at the possibility that possibly even Jill Biden may feel the need to step in and offer to run for her president. But let's start with the very real and ongoing tensions inside the U.S.-Israeli alliance.
Well, my friend, welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. And I hope we'll see each other in Washington by the end of the year here. One of the things that always stuck in my mind, and we've had a lot of discussions over the years, you and I, how long has it been?
Who can count?
I tell you what, I gave up counting because he worked for the embassy and I was a freshman senator, and we were both very important then.
Thank you, Mr. President. Joe, we've been friends for, I've checked it, over 40 years, and our friendship goes a long way and can take us a long way. I'm delighted to see you. I think we live at a time of great promise, but also grave danger. I think that under your leadership, Mr. President, we can forge a historic peace between Israel and Saudi Arabia. And I think such a peace would go a long way, first, to advance the end of the Arab-Israeli conflict, achieve reconciliation between the Islamic world and the Jewish state, and advance a genuine peace between Israel and the Palestinians. And also, by working together, we can confront those forces that threaten that future, none more so than Iran. I appreciate, Mr. President, your continuous commitment to prevent Iran from achieving nuclear weapons capability. I think that's critical. And that shared goal of ours can be best achieved by a credible military threat, crippling sanctions, and supporting the brave men and women of Iran who despise that regime and who are our real partners for a better future.
Biden is a man who proudly calls himself a Zionist. He's a man I've described as the most pro-Israel figure in the entire Democratic Party. Yet, we're now 9 full months into the new government of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. And yet, Netanyahu has not gone to the White House all this year. Now, this is shameful at every possible level. It's not only harming the U.S.-Israeli alliance, it's sending a signal, a terrible signal, to all of Israel's enemies in the region and around the world that there is significant daylight between Washington and Jerusalem. And that's not just dumb, it's dangerous. Look, the Iranian regime is racing towards building fully operational nuclear warheads. They're enriching uranium at higher and higher levels, getting dangerously close to bomb-grade purity. They're trying to figure out how to attach such nuclear warheads to the high-speed ballistic missiles they already have, missiles that can already reach Israel, they can already reach Europe, and soon they'll be able to reach the United States. And just this week, the Iranian government started blocking the UN's most experienced and seasoned inspectors from examining Iran's most sensitive nuclear facilities. Look, I get it. Netanyahu has plenty of problems here at home, a massive protest movement that just won't quit. All 15 Israeli Supreme Court justices meeting together for the first time in the history of the modern state of Israel, actively considering striking down Bibi's first judicial reform law. dropping approval ratings, and his chief rival, former Defense Minister Benny Gantz, steadily rising in the polls. But come on, Joe Biden doesn't have to agree with Bibi Netanyahu on everything. Netanyahu certainly doesn't agree with Biden on everything that he says or does. And yes, some of Bibi's political allies are deeply unpopular and deeply offensive people. National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir and Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich certainly come to mind. But let's not kid ourselves. Biden certainly has some deeply unpopular and deeply offensive political allies of his own. Bernie Sanders, AOC, Rashida Tlaib, and the entire squad certainly come to mind. But true leaders, true friends and allies should meet, talk, invite each other to each other's homes, and iron out their differences even as they advance their common and urgent objectives. Yet month after month goes by, and Biden still hasn't been willing to receive Netanyahu to the White House, much less to come to Israel and meet Bibi here in Jerusalem. That said, Netanyahu has no choice but to carry on. He arrived in New York earlier this week, where he's expected to address the opening fall session of the UN General Assembly. And he's going to confront the world for doing nothing to stop Iran's regime from racing towards fully operational nuclear warheads. And he's going to blast the international community, I think, for doing almost nothing to punish the Iranian regime for beating, crushing, and killing their own people, especially women. Bibi will also meet with Elon Musk this week, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and even Turkish President Recep Erdogan. Netanyahu is also expected to press Biden on how they can forge an historic peace and normalization treaty between Israel and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. I, of course, wrote about that in my novel, The Jerusalem Assassin, the possibility of a Saudi crown prince meeting with an Israeli prime minister and trying to make peace. That was fiction then, but it's getting closer and closer to reality, and I hope these two can meet and talk about it. Let's pray that Netanyahu's speech goes well. Let's pray that his meetings with various world business and political leaders goes well. Let's also pray that the health of the U.S.-Israeli alliance will be fully restored. That's exactly what I'm praying. That's exactly what the Apostle Paul commands us to do, to pray for kings and all those in authority. And at this critical time in the Middle East history, it's a moment of grave danger from Iran, but also of great opportunity when it comes to the possibility of a Israeli-Saudi peace deal. This is exactly what we need to be doing, praying. I think of the words of the Apostle Paul in Romans 12:12, be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and faithful in prayer.